Welcome back to Final Sector. Quick turnaround for this one because we are coming up to another round in the Formula One World Championship, and a round that is probably gonna be pretty interesting, hopefully compared to the last weeks at least. As much as things have been interesting because we've had these kind of different drivers vying for pole or even getting the race win, the racing itself may have been quite lukewarm. But we are going to a country which has traditionally produced pretty good racing. Not always, but most of the time, if you've got a competitive season, this track is going to be competitive. And we are, of course, going to Canada. Wowee. What do you think? Always like to get your thoughts. Excited?
Oh
What you
yeah,
thinking?
I like Canada. I think I said this last year as well. It's one of my, like, in terms of the track, it's one of my favorites.
Yep.
And yeah, I guess coming off the back of three dull races, let's say, I think this will be a nice welcome change. There is weather about as well, like probably the highest chance of weather we've had, particularly across all 3 days. And anyone that's watched enough Formula One knows that Canada in the wet always produces some chaos.
There are a few changes actually coming into the circuit here. They've actually gone through and basically resurfaced. I don't know if it's all of the track or most of the track.
Pretty
but
much the entire track, yeah.
Significant resurfacing.
Yeah.
I think with two core goals, one to smooth out the bumps. It generally is quite bumpy here. Might be some news that, of course, Red Bull might be happy to hear.
Yep.
But also to provide some general better grip. Now, of course, just because you resurface doesn't mean that suddenly you have better grip and the tires don't wear. We've seen other resurfacing completely change how tires can work to either be even slower or be faster or wear more. So, if anything, even if it is dry in parts, it basically means data from the past kind of goes out the window a little bit in terms of tire wear.
Yeah.
And if it's a fresh surface and it's wet, well, I mean, look at when we went back to Turkey for the first time more recently and it was wet. And we may have something similar, as you say, for basically, I think it's Thursday onwards. It's scheduled for a lot of rain, or a high % chance of rain, cold temperatures regardless.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because they're actually in the middle of a heat wave and a fire ban right now. So they're kind of going from what is a fire ban in 30s into very cold, wet conditions, which could even, asphalt going from hot to cold to it could just throw even more things.
Yeah, there's
going to
be massive cracks running down the surface, and it's going to be
who knows?
It's
It is
real,
new.
real
So,
Detroit hours. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Good point. Just got to get the tram tracks going over and get all sorts
yeah.
of. So, I guess it's hard to say because if we say, well, if it's going to be wet, is it going to be dry? Is it actually going to be smoother? What's the surface like? It's even more hard to know what's going to go on here. I mean, it's still a more traditional circuit that you would expect Red Bull to be stronger at. But they're already very pessimistic, or maybe it's just off the back of the recent races coming in here where they're saying, look, if there's any bumps, we think actually this is really a weakness for us.
Yep.
Or it could just be talking out of their ass because they've just had a bad Imola. I mean, they won, but a riskier Imola, and Monaco is an outlier. I don't know. What are you thinking, Chief?
I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility that they won't be strong here, but I think they are obviously downplaying it more just because of their recent events, recent races where they haven't been quite as strong. I think that they do seem to understand their issues are particularly over bumps and curbs, and this is a track where you have to attack the curbs, otherwise you will not get a fast lap time. A lot of chicanes. You need to be able to take as many of those,
especially that last
possible.
Chicane. You got to be really confident through there.
Yep. So, and if Max isn't confident, we saw in Monaco, he makes a mistake, you don't want to be going into the wall of champions. So,
exactly,
that's a big mistake. So, I think that there's probably genuine reason for them to be concerned with how close the Ferraris and the McLarens are. And yeah, I think, like you say, the fact that it's been resurfaced is probably awesome for them. They're probably like, thank you that it was this year, not the previous years where they might have changed things a bit. But I think having a smoother surface, they might still, I think they still will be right up there. But like you say, the track resurface, who knows how it's going to play? It could go either way. So, and then when it's rain, is it going to be super slippery, being new asphalt and completely, green? They don't get much racing there. So, I don't really know how it's all going to play out.
Yeah, I guess there's cause to be optimistic about the fact that even if maybe Red Bull is still on or near the top, you get a sense that even if they are, it's not going to be by much, right? The pressure is certainly properly on them, and I think they're, vocal about that. And that just gives us cause to be hopefully optimistic and excited about it.
Yeah.
I didn't see much in terms of teams announcing big kind of changes, upgrades here. I mean, it is a quicker track, so teams can sometimes bring more of a low downforce setup here, but depending on the weather, you don't necessarily want a low downforce setup if you know it's going to be very wet. And this is a circuit where even if you can get some decent straight line speed, being quick through that first and second sector can actually open you up enough of a gap where it doesn't matter if you kind of slow it down the back straight. So it's sometimes a track where different teams can kind of do different things.
It's true, but at the same time, we saw at Spa that one year when McLaren was super strong in qualifying in the wet, and then it got to the dry race and they were just absolute dog shit.
That's very true.
So you don't really want to go too far that way if it's going to end up being wet qualifying dry race.
Yes.
It's hard to tell what it's going to be. Like I said, it might just be wet all weekend, but might be dry all weekend. It's kind of 50-50 at the moment, but it's a real hard balance to get, because that back straight is really, really long. If you've got a lot of downforce, you're going to struggle. I think regardless of how fast you are through the first two sectors, unless you're a second faster, then if you're in DRS, you're probably getting close or past. So, yeah. And
even if you don't make it necessarily down that back straight, but you get close, we see a lot of the time people will then finish the move into T1 because it is kind of, you've got that bit of a chicane, but it's a medium speed chicane. It's not like you really separate out. And if you've got, a pace or a grip or a confidence advantage, you could then gain speed through that chicane as well, and then have even more leading onto that straight, which is often how people get it. They get a better launch than the guy in front of them. Or the guy in front makes an error, or a lockup, or brake failure, as we've seen. But again, depends on the weather. I mean, it's pretty crazy. I guess, there's more hope to look at this, to hope that even if the Red Bull is decent, that at least it will be a good overall weekend, an enjoyable race, and a lot going on, even if there wasn't much weather or this new surfacing going on. So hopefully this all adds to the pot, and we've got something exciting to watch. I guess there's a few drivers to watch for. I mean, of course, other than Max. Interesting to see Perez, if he can find some newfound pace with his newfound news. I'm sure there'll be many interviews and questions, and people ask him to go, but did you really expect it? And him probably going, of course. And they go, nah, did you really?
Did you really? So, and grilling Christian Horner and being like, why?
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
Why are you such... This is going to come back to bite them. I won't talk much on it, but this is going to come back to bite them. 2 years.
So even if you are, a decent fan of the racing, but you sometimes like the side stuff, the off-track stuff, then this should also be a pretty good weekend for that, I would say. I didn't see too much else. I don't think in terms of DRS zones, other reprofiling, there's not really much that's changed.
I don't think so.
It's mainly just that.
The only thing I did see is that similar to what they did in Imola, the runoff areas that were used to be just concrete, they've now basically put grass there, so the runoff is, which is good. That's great. People have been talking about how they want, they don't want these big runoff areas where you can gain speed and keep the position. And if you make a mistake, you go onto the grass, you're gonna lose the position. Gravel, obviously, people want, but I think this works just as well, having the grass there. It's enough to dissuade you.
Here.
Yeah. So I think that's a great change too. And I'm glad that at least, I don't know if it's an FIA thing or if it's just the circuit, being, they were doing all these changes anyway, and they decided to do this at the same time. Regardless of who made the decision, I'm glad that all these tracks are starting to crack down on the track limits after last year in particular, where it became quite a big talking point. So
yes, it's true.
Only a good thing. So
yep. Self-policing track limits are the best track limits. Definitely. Even though it doesn't necessarily take a car out to make a mistake. If it does slow them up, dirt's on their tires. I mean, perfect. And as you say, at a circuit like this, you can almost imagine it where you think sometimes, someone goes a bit wide because they're getting pushed off and they kind of just rejoin and there's no real penalty,
exactly,
or they kind of still have a good run. But you can imagine going through the dirt there and going, oh, that would actually that's pretty good.
Yep.
So it should be good here. I think that's all we kind of
Pretty
saw.
much,
I haven't
yeah.
seen much else. Could be another case where, of course, everyone turns up on the Thursday, the Friday, and then suddenly there's all sorts going on. But
Almost certainly.
you'll just have to tune in to yourself to make sure that you're following along for the weekend. With that, we do need to go into the predictions, of course. Much to my joy, I am starting to claw back, the big lead that you used to have. So coming into last round, you were 2.5 ahead. And based on our predictions, we did get it right that Max wasn't on top. But we both still put him on the podium. However, you had a McLaren on top, which of course is not how it turned out.
Yep.
But you did have a Ferrari driver in P3, but it was Charles, so you
Yep.
just get half a point for that one.
Yeah.
I did have both the Ferrari drivers, but the wrong way around, so at least I get the full point for that, which means half a point back in my favor.
Fantastic.
So I believe that puts it to... It'll be you on 13, myself on 11. So it's only two
Okay.
separating it now.
Yeah,
Yes, that
it's-
sounds right. I'm sure I stuffed it up somehow still, but that sounds
It'll
right.
be fine.
And now going into this weekend, after everything that we just said, this is a bit of a tricky one. I guess we need to get what our random number is,
Yeah.
which I'm pretty sure you could also just roll a dice on it given this weekend. But
Yeah, I don't know, man. Especially if there is rain, we haven't seen the wet running pace of anyone.
and not proper wet running over like a
No,
whole weekend,
exactly,
and just like
yeah.
a qualifying. Oh, here's one, P20.
Oh, come on, man.
We haven't had P20 yet. You gotta do it one.
This is a crapshoot because this will be a retirement.
It's if you get through this whole race without a retiree, especially in challenging conditions.
I wonder how many non-retire, all 20 finishes we've had at a Canada Grand Prix, because it can't be many. This is a high attrition race in terms of...
Well, there's not been many in the history of the sport. There's only 12 or 13 races total. So
Is it really that few?
there's not that few. Most of them are in the last 2 or 3 years. A vast majority
Right.
of them.
Actually, that would make sense, being how reliable the cars are in the last couple of years. So.
Yeah.
It's going to be a retirement.
Yes.
Who do I think is going to retire first? That's a great question. Do I have a 20-sided die that I can roll and pick a
It's
number?
a bit like that. As much as I hate to say it, for some reason, I'll say Snowder. I feel like he's one of those that's had too good a streak, and something unlucky is going to happen to him.
He's done too good for too long. He needs to be
I won't
taken
say it's
down
his
a
fault,
peg.
but yes, he might not reach the finish line.
I think Ocon and Magnussen might keep their noses a little bit more clean this weekend. Just
It
given
would be a bit dire, wouldn't
it
it?
would be pretty dire. You know what? I'll just say Ricardo, just because you said Sonoda. I'll say the other one.
Sure. So we should go into our top 3.
I still don't know. I don't know.
Right.
I don't have anything. I don't have any notes, and my
Okay,
mind's gone
well,
blank.
let's start. I don't know where to start. Maybe do you think, are you putting your money down on Max for P1, I guess is the first question.
I am not.
Okay, that's a
Yeah.
good start.
I'll start with that. I think I'm gonna
Start with a half answer.
Yeah,
Max
I'm gonna.
not P1.
Well, I think this is the one thing I was probably gonna go with. I think this might be the weekend I'm not gonna put Max on the podium at all. I think with how under pressure they are at the moment, I think if they do understand their issues, they're gonna fix them before too long. And I think we've already seen him not on the podium once. We missed out on a great opportunity to do it for Monaco. Here they're expecting, and to be honest, I'm expecting them to struggle as well.
Mm-hmm.
If it is raining on top of that, I know I have seen the McLarens, albeit in a small portion in the wet, they looked super, super strong.
Yeah.
Incredibly strong. And I also think that the Ferrari will be very, very suited to this track as well. I'll say that Piastri's going to win, just because I want another new winner.
You beauty.
What's that? That's 4 different winners this year?
Yeah.
4, 5. because Norris, Leclerc, Sainz, Max, and then Piastri.
Oh, nice. You're right. You're right.
This will be number 5. So
Wow. Wowee.
yeah,
Well,
I don't know which one you're gonna go.
I'm
with.
glad that you've gone with that. I do have Max P1.
Okay, yeah, get it.
If not just because it's a safer move. I mean, I'd love to confidently I'd love to confidently say that. What am I trying to say? That he's not on P1, I guess, but I just don't have that confidence. I guess it's almost like if this is weekend where they continue to struggle, then I'll be like, right, kind of change your mindset. But it's like there's kind of been so many leading circumstances to where they've kind of struggled, and even in Imola, which you'd say they probably really struggled there, he still was on top, only just, but he still got that done. There's just not enough to count him out. And as I said, I'm kind of try-harding anyway, so I'm like, I gotta just do what I think is a fairly safe prediction at this point.
Yeah,
there's a reason I put in P2 in Monaco, even though we probably could have thought about it more and gone, actually, it's probably safer to put him further down.
Yep. I'm also getting my no Max on the podium out of the way now, so you have to do it later.
Yes,
in the year,
I did note that.
so.
This is a good weekend to do that. I think, as you say, like, as much as you go, oh well, there's other races later on, like, I don't know,
Singapore,
Vegas
Qatar,
or Singapore, whatever, Qatar, but with the recent trend, this for the same thing.
Yep.
So there, asterisk there, caveat that you maybe are doubling down because of that rule. That we
there was a consideration, yes.
You're just like, oh, I only thought of it just now. It's a coincidence. Oh, brilliant.
Oh wow, that's you took the words right out of my mouth. That's crazy.
So further down, I guess I'll go P3.
Okay.
I've got Lando here.
I also had Lando.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I actually did. I
It kind of just feels right, I guess. Because he is, in a McLaren, which you think would do well.
Yep.
I guess there's that question of him and Piastri. Who do you pip? And you could kind of go either way. But it feels weird to not have him on there even when you are putting something together. It just feels right that he is kind of on the podium.
It does, at the moment. Even though he wasn't at Monaco, but
that's the thing. He wasn't at Monaco, but then Monaco is a very different circuit. Yeah. I like, if you think about when it played out more traditional, he somehow might find his way up there. And you look at what he did in Imola, it was pretty good as well. So
very true.
But P2, I guess we don't have Lando. We don't have Max. You don't have Piastri.
I've got Charles.
Yeah, I've got Charles as well.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Interesting, because you're putting so much behind McLaren. It almost felt like you thought there'd be... Well, I guess you don't have two McLarens. You still think Ferrari will be there enough to split them.
Oh,
I guess is what you're thinking.
Yeah. I think they're probably... They're obviously strong in different areas, but I just think if it is wet, it's a very big gamble. Again, I've only seen it on one track at a very small amount of time over a couple of fast laps. But again, basing it on last year with that McLaren, they're quick in the wet, and both drivers are quick in the wet. So if it is a wet circuit, like I'm expecting it to be, everything in me says McLaren's going to be the fastest car. So
I can't fault it. Yeah.
And I think the Ferrari, I think if it's dry, I expect the Ferrari to probably be faster than the McLaren, particularly with Charles. It's such fine margins, isn't it? Like at the moment,
it really is.
It's like it'll be 10 degrees hotter, and all of a sudden it's in the window for McLaren or Ferrari, and it's gone out of the window for the other team, and that's how fine the margins are at the moment between these teams, which is awesome. But it makes predicting it very, very hard.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, it's not like last year where we could pretty much have a slam dunk every single race and still get it wrong because we're idiots and had the hopium.
Well, that's part of the reason I think we extended it down rather than just, what was it, the winner or even the P2 or something. I don't fully remember something what we did, but we'd kind of changed it. Yeah. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree, and yet I felt like I had to put Leclerc, I guess, best of the rest behind Max.
Yeah.
If anything, maybe just because he's running actually off of quite a high, quite a striker form, and he might just have that and continue driving it forward.
Yeah.
But you could see any other of those names we've dropped in there as well, and I would not be surprised. So,
Yep. What about Mercedes? You think they gotta be there?
they used to like this track when their brakes weren't burning up.
Yeah.
I don't. Probably not. I mean, based on what we're saying, but it still feels weird to commit to saying a hard no, because they could just pop out of the blue. But
I'm not saying anything, because the second I say something, they'll go do the opposite. They just will.
They're gonna win. They're gonna win. They're gonna win. No, I'm kidding.
Wow. Okay, Kyle hates Mercedes. That's ooh.
I think that's all we've got here. So I think we're in for a wild and woolly weekend. Not just for those that are actually got tickets this weekend.
Yeah.
Good luck to those that are attending in person.
Take your umbrellas and your
We'll have-
ponchos and
Exactly.
things, yeah.
Exactly. We'll have to see. But otherwise, of course, as always, if you get a chance, let us know what you're thinking for this weekend. Are we crazy, or are we actually on the money here? We'd be
I'm
curious to
definitely
hear your
crazy,
thoughts.
but I already knew that.
Yeah. We knew that before we started the podcast.
Yeah.
Let's get that out of the way. But yes, so we'll be back afterwards anyway to debrief everything that is going on, as always. Let us know your thoughts. Otherwise, enjoy the weekend. Hopefully it's a great one, and we will see you next time.